Your CV is an opportunity to promote yourself. You want to sell your skills and qualifications, experience, and your ability to do the job. Advertising yourself is all about attracting attention and appealing to the needs of the buyer, so you need to highlight your strengths and achievements to interest the recruiter. However, it's important to remember that these recruiters are busy people. In fact, you probably have less than a minute to sell yourself and to make a lasting impression. This is definitely easier said than done, so what I'd like to do now is to give you some tips on how to produce a good CV. A few simple rules that will make all the difference. First, you need to consider how much you have to say and how much of this is relevant to the job you want. Remember, the length is important. Generally, you should ensure that your CV is no more than 2 pages long, 3 at the very most. Choose a clear, legible font and stick to this throughout. For most fonts, size 11 works well. In terms of layout, make sure your name is larger than 11, say size 14, and appears central in the page and in bold. Next should come your address, followed by your email address and the contact number. Remember that you don't have to include your date of birth, however recruiters can usually work this out from your employment or education history. Start your CV with a brief personal profile. There should be no more than 4 or 5 statements that really hone in on your skills, qualities and suitability for the role you want. Use strong and positive language. The next section should focus on your employment history. Start with your current or most recent role. List your job title and the company of employment in bold, followed by the relevant dates. Maybe start date to present, and this can be in brackets. Think about the role you're applying for and include any key points that might resonate with the prospective employer. Candidates often just use their current job description without really adapting it to the new role requirements. It's really important to draw attention to your responsibilities and achievements, especially those that show a good fit with the job spec for the job you want. You need to be specific and precise, and try to finish on some factual information about how you positively impacted on the business you were working in. The length of this section will obviously vary according to your work experience. Remember though the 2 to 3 page rule. If you've had a number of jobs, elaborate on the most recent and be brief with your description of earlier roles, especially if they bear little relation to your application. Once you're happy with your employment history, you'll need to focus on your education. There is always a temptation in this section to embellish qualifications to get a particular job. It's a temptation that should definitely be avoided. Many companies now ask for proof of qualifications, so even if you are offered a role, an employer will want to see your certificates before this is confirmed. This is not to say that you shouldn't focus on the positives, but the content should be accurate and able to be evidenced. After listing your qualifications, it's a good idea to add any other additional skills that you have. For instance, training courses that you've attended, language skills, awards that you've received, membership of professional bodies, and any voluntary work that you've undertaken. Finally, you may want to add a couple of lines listing your hobbies and interests. Try to avoid the standard list of reading, cinema, socialising. If you can mention something that's more unusual, say skydiving or brass rubbing, stamp collecting, you never know, your prospective boss could even be a kindred spirit. Now, all done, but please read through your CV before you press send if you're applying online, and ask someone else to double check it in case you've missed any spelling or grammatical errors. Recruiters say that 3/4 of all rejected CVs are due to bad grammar, spelling, or poor visual layout. So, just to summarise, your CV should be well presented, easy to read, no more than 2 or 3 pages long, ideally 2. It should state clearly who you are, what you bring to the table in terms of skills, knowledge, attitude and experience, and crucially should be adapted or modified to fit each application you make. Now your masterpiece is complete, but don't relax, we still have the covering letter to do. The cover letter. In an age where the majority of job applications are digital, are covering letters still important? Even more to the point, is there any opportunity to send one with an online CV? The answer to both questions is yes. A recent survey found that almost half of recruiters' questions said that they had rejected a candidate who didn't send a cover letter when given the option to. With that in mind, I'd like to offer a few guidelines on how to put together a good cover letter. Your cover letter should always pick out the very best bits of your CV, without just repeating the information verbatim. It should convey a positive approach and attitude and should grab the reader's attention. So rather than seeing this as just another onerous task in the job application process, view it as a unique opportunity to talk to the potential employers more personally and to convince them why you're the perfect candidate for the job. Before you begin writing, make sure you've done your homework on the company. Research more about what they do, their business proposition, how they differ from their competitors, their future plans, and the key people that work there. Much of this information can be gleaned from a website, so it's worth spending some time on your initial research. You don't need to mention your findings, but your knowledge will shine through when you begin to write your cover letter. In terms of layout, your cover letter should be no longer than one side of A4 and written in an appropriate font size 11 or 12 in Arial or Calibri will work well if you're unsure. Make sure that you adopt the standard layout for a business letter. Your address should sit on the right hand side at the top of the letter, with the name and address of the company you're applying to on the left hand side slightly lower down. A further point which may seem obvious, make sure you know who you're addressing the letter to and their preferred title. Are they Mr, Ms, Mrs or Doctor, for example? If you don't know, look on the company's website and make a call and find out. Small displays of initiative like this can really impress the reader. Throughout your cover letter, it's important to ensure that the tone you adopt is professional but not too stilted. This is an opportunity for you to get your personality across. So give some thought not only to what you want to say, but how you're going to say it. So before you begin the main body of the letter, underline the role you're applying for, including the role title and any reference number attached to the job description. This should be in bold and centred before you begin your first paragraph. You're now ready to begin the narrative. In the first paragraph, indicate again which role you're applying for, where you saw the advert and why you're applying. In other words, what appeals to you about the role. The next two paragraphs should focus on your skills, experiences and achievements. In the case of a targeted letter, it's important to demonstrate how you meet the essential criteria specified in the advertisement. If this is a speculative application, think about what skills are looked for in the type of role you're targeting and make these the focus of the two paragraphs. As mentioned earlier, the cover letter should also include something directly related to the company that you're writing to. This is where your research comes in. It's a good idea to state what it is about their organisation that interests you, and if you can include any statistics or snippets of information that indicate that you've done some research, this can only improve your chances. Before your final paragraph, remember to draw attention to any relevant courses or qualifications you have, and if you don't have previous experience, display your enthusiasm for the role and for learning. And so we come to the final paragraph. End the letter on a positive note. It's universally considered a good idea to use the last paragraph of your letter to emphasise your enthusiasm for the role. Thank the employer for taking the time to consider your application and proactively encourage an interview, stressing your flexibility concerning dates and times. Sign off politely with yours sincerely, your name, email address and telephone number. Once you've completed your letter and you're happy with it, don't forget about checking. Going back to our survey, 83% of recruiters say poor spelling and grammar are the worst mistakes that a candidate could make, so make sure that you've double-checked your letter. Finally, make a list of all the things you wanted to say and check them off against what you've written. Then get a fresh set of eyes to review before you press send.